Turn the sound on.
All set?
Good?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Okay, good evening and welcome to the Town of Wareham Board of Selectmen's meeting for November 7th, 2017. May we have a roll call, please?
Present is Selectman Tropiano, Selectman Scasiotti, Selectman Whiteside, Selectman Slavin, Selectman Titlebaum, and Town Administrator Derek Sullivan.
Is it Titlebaum or Titleman this week? Let's see.
It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Pledge of Allegiance. Mike Hogan, would you lead us in the pledge, please? Okay, announcements. Selectman Tropiano.
No, I'll wait till we get to
Yep.
liaison reports.
Selectman Whiteside.
I just want to remind people that there are several fundraising events for CORE coming up. Saturday at the Historical Society's Fair. You can buy Pickett's bricks, pictures, and all sorts of stuff. There's a spaghetti supper on the 18th, and then on December 2nd, they also have a table at the library holiday fair.
Okay. First, I'd like to take a moment of silence. Claire McWilliams, which was, I believe, Wareham's first select woman, and I think she's also the first one elected as a woman to the assessor's office.
Yes.
Among many other things in town, she was a leader for a long time, and I asked for a moment of silence. Next, just a note for everybody, we had the Grumpy's 5K over at Makepeace this past weekend. Claire and family really put on a good event with Peter Beaton. It was very well run. Sandy and I were out in the middle of the bog freezing our butts off, but it was fun anyways. They gave us chairs, so the old people actually made it through the whole time watching. And also, which was a little tight time-wise, Dick Wheeler, who's been recognized many times for his books and information on the Great Auk, did a really nice presentation with the TV show and everything else, and hopefully people get a chance to see that. It is a special event. And remind everybody, November 11th is Veterans Day, and we will have at the Town Hall, there'll be no parade, everybody, just remember, because I've been asked that about 4 or 5 times now, but we will have an event at Town Hall at the Memorial. We'll have remarks from the co-chairs, Julio Roderick from the VFW, Bob Politis from the American Legion. And it's just a quick note they gave me here, 99 years ago at 11 a.m., November 11th, 1918 was Armistice Day, marking the end of World War I. The participants in this event will be Harbor Master Jimmy McIntosh, the assistant, WCTV, Matt Stanton from the ROTC. There's an honor guard. There's going to be a pastor from the Good Shepherd Church. Susan Williams Gifford will be there speaking. And they also mentioned here that it's the 243rd birthday of the United States Marine Corps. And it also, later on, which is separate from that event, there's a 1 p.m. Dedication of Lukey Playground on Hathaway Street. That's all I got.
Okay, I have a couple of different raffles benefiting the elderly. The Friends of the Wareham Elderly are selling tickets for $5 each. And the prize is a picture frame full of instant scratch tickets. You could win millions. The Council on Aging is doing their own raffle for $5 a ticket. All proceeds will be used to raise money to purchase a new bingo console for their bingo game. You can visit the Council on Aging office, and you can also call Mary Ellen Fielding at 508-441-7304 to schedule your own sale of tickets to benefit the Friends of the Elderly raffle. And the winning tickets for both raffles will be drawn during the intermission of the weekly bingo event on Monday, December 18th. So you don't have to be present to claim the prize. They will call you. And that's all I have. Next up, citizens' comments. Is there anybody who'd like to speak to the board tonight? Mrs. Slavin.
How many folds in that, ma'am?
8.
Do you have the right date on it?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sandy Slavin. Funny lady. Oh, also on
Let's do
November
my birthday
11th at
cake.
11 o'clock, the churches will all be ringing their bells, Wareham, Marion, just to add to what November 11th at 11 means. So there will be a lot of church bells.
It's also Claire's funeral, so it's going to be,
Yes, that's
so it's going to, yeah.
Mrs. McWilliams' service, yes. At town meeting, there was a discussion regarding the old town offices needing an historic preservation restriction for receiving CPA funds. And if I recall, Mr. Titlebaum, you said because it was in a district, it didn't need an HPR.
Yes, I believe Attorney Bowen backstopped that as well.
Okay, so with that in mind, I'm going to be looking at all of the buildings that have been required an HPR that has received CPC money and ask that that be removed from their requirement.
Well, to the point, to the extent that, and actually, if this is something you're doing as a CPC person, it really should be scheduled as an agenda item.
I'm here from the Historical Society. We received several grants, and I'm seeing whether or not we can have that requirement removed from our articles that was placed on us.
What would the benefit of that to the Historical Society be, since they're already restricted as being in the district?
That's why I'm asking if I no longer need an HPR on those buildings, can it be removed from the article?
So, 3 of the buildings are not in the historic district. Faring Tavern, the church.
Some of them already have it. Why would you be removing it?
Sorry?
Yeah, I'm just not certain what the benefit would be.
Should come to a separate.
Well,
That should come to us as a separate inquiry. That's not something we're really prepared to discuss tonight.
But I'm just hearing what I heard at town meeting. We will pursue it. Okay?
Fine.
Okay, thank you. Now, then another one. I heard at a previous selectmen's meeting, there was some discussion about requiring the trains to no longer blow their whistles when they go against... I know it's coming up on the agenda, but I won't be able to have a chance to talk to it because it's not a public hearing on it. We have 8 crossings in this town that are gated, that the train crosses streets, 8 of them. If you are going to ask for a quiet zone for one home or neighborhood, what makes you not ask for a quiet zone of no blowing at horns across the other 8 sites?
It'll be in the discussion.
Well, I know that,
Yeah,
but
I don't know that that's even...
discuss about it. I won't
you're-
be able to talk about it, so
This is just an open discussion. There's no policy going to be made tonight, I don't think.
I just wanted, if
It's-
you are going to do it for one, can we,
Can I just say one thing? I can fix this for you. We'll ask for all of them, because that's the process, as I understand it from council. You ask for all of them, they never give you all of them, but they'll give us some of them, and that's how you have to approach it. And that's what we'll be doing. So we don't know which ones we'll end up getting, but we'll ask for them.
Well, wait,
And we don't even know if we're going to ask for them at this point. Again, this is just a discussion.
just that, something to think about. I know that it's private property, I know there's no trespassing, but believe you me, as a kid leaving high school and coming home, I walked the track to get home because it was the easiest, best way, and I always heard the whistle coming, so I always got out of the way. If you don't blow the whistle, you don't hear the train.
and the kids walk the tracks every day.
Well, we
They do.
had to cross the tracks to get to our bus stop. I mean, it's one of those things that you're not going to stop the blue crab fishermen from crossing the tracks or anything like that. So just that, if you're going to ask for quiet zones, consider the option that it might impact people who do walk the tracks illegally. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else would like to speak to the board tonight? Okay, seeing none. Appointments, reappointments, and interviews. We have an appointment to the Conservation Commission, Robert Lassen.
Make a motion, we approve Robert Lassen, 2 Mattapoisett Road, Wareham, Mass., to the Conservation Commission to a term expire no later than June 30th, 2019.
Second.
Okay, motion to appoint by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, it's unanimous, 500. The paperwork will be ready in the office tomorrow for Mr. Lassen to pick up, and then go down to the clerk and take another oath of office. We're going to do one license and permit. Vote to amend the license for Little Harbor Country Club to change the class from a year-round liquor license to a seasonal liquor license. Is there anybody here from Little
Mr.
Harbor?
D'Arienzo.
Come on up, please.
All the paperwork is in order.
Good evening. If you'll just identify yourself for the audience.
Absolutely. My name's Kenny D'Arienzo. I'm the general manager of the Little Harbor Country Club.
Okay, and to be clear here for everybody, you're seeking to, I guess we would call it downgrade from a year-round liquor license to a seasonal?
Correct.
You're not finding the business in the wintertime to
We have come
exist?
to terms that we are a outdoor recreational activity that resides in New England, so unfortunately, it is just not in our best interest for us to stay open during the winter months.
It was
Okay, thanks.
also in their minutes for their board to make this change.
Yeah, they would have to vote that.
I'll
It should
move
be,
that it be done.
Okay, motion by Selectman Whiteside,
Second.
second by Selectman Tropiano. Any further discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 500. And the seasonal license should be available in the office for you tomorrow.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, we're going to jump down under town business to 8A. Actually, no, that's 8B. Discussion with 80 Makepeace Company regarding local housing initiatives. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Could I ask Linda to lead off?
Mm-hmm. Where we have a PowerPoint, could somebody kill one of the rows of lights back there so it's a little easier for the TV to pick it up? Thanks.
And can you
Oh,
also identify yourselves for the
Oh,
record,
even better.
please?
Can you see your own stuff in the dark?
Good evening, I'm Linda Burke from the 80 Makepeace Company, and this is Michael Hogan, also from the 80 Makepeace Company. It's been some time since we've been here to talk to you about what the company is up to, so we thought it would be helpful to give you a little bit of background on what we have accomplished in recent years. You've all seen, I think, the development at Rosebrook, and I can tell you that we have close to 400 employees at Rosebrook alone at this point, between the Marriott, the All-American Assisted Living, 99 Restaurant, and of course South Coast Health, and the other tenants that are located there. We have another 100 employees seasonally at the businesses that have located to Charlotte Furnace, including Master Millwork, Progressive Growers, and Beaton Cranberry. We have 38 employees of the 80 Makepeace Company who live in town. That's 31 full-time employees, including myself, as you all know, and 7 part-time employees. We had put this information together earlier using last year's numbers, and we actually have increased significantly over the past year in the number of employees that live in the town. And many of our employees are involved in different types of service to the community. We've got staff on more than 20 town committees and local nonprofit boards, and also involved in a variety of things. I think most of you know Ellis Bailey, who's on your finance committee and a member of our accounting department. Kim Houdelet is on the board of directors of Turning Point. Renee Gonzalez, who doesn't live in Wareham, but she's very involved with the junior achievement activities in our schools here. And I'm involved with the Boys and Girls Club, Beach and Tourism, and the Chamber of Commerce, among other things. And an example of the type of contributions that we've made generally, the staff has provided kind of ad hoc assistance to the moving wall when it was here this past summer, providing some of the setup services. We
asked our finance department to put together some information on funds that have been paid to the town by us. This is only by us. And since the beginning of calendar 2013 through this past October, there's been payments of about $2.7 million, mostly property taxes, but that also includes excise, permit fees, property taxes, water and sewer bills, so not strictly to the town, but to the water and fire district, public safety for when we do special events at the property at Taihonet Village, Makepeace Neighborhood Fund grants to town agencies, including the Harbor Master, and support for library and school programs, and we've also provided support for the I-195 Visitor Center over the years. That funding doesn't include payments made by others that we encourage to be here, and that includes the housing at Crane Landing, Taihonet Pond South, and Maple Springs. The Charlotte Furnace development, All American Assisted Living, it was actually sold to them, so they pay property taxes directly. And Town Place Suites also makes payments directly to the town, including hotel motel revenues. I think the last time we were here, we were talking about a TIF agreement, which town meeting approved. And at the time, you may recall, we talked about the other taxes that would be provided to the town as the TIF was ramping down. And we showed that in that presentation at the time, that La France revenue from the hotel motel tax would be about $205,000 in the year 2028, and we're already pretty, we don't get specific figures about specific developments, but it's pretty apparent that we're already just about at that level. The hotel tax averaged less than $50,000 from the time that it was enacted through fiscal 2015, and then you see the jump where the Marriott began operation. But what we're here to talk about tonight is housing programs, and just to give you a little bit of background, Michael and I both worked in the public sector and were involved in a variety of different public types of programs in addition to what we're doing now. And the program that people are most familiar with is the 40B comprehensive permits, which enables a developer to come in and kind of stretch your zoning regulations, either in an unfriendly way or a friendly way. A friendly way would be the local initiative program that the state offers that enables the town to give incentives that aren't necessarily financial, but you also have the ability to provide financial assistance, as you see in the second column here. The concept of workforce housing is relatively new. It is defined by the state as being affordable for households that earn 80 to 120% of the median income, whereas the other affordable housing programs are affordable for people who earn less than that. There's a financing program that's administered by Mass Housing, and it's basically designed to accommodate individuals and families who do not meet income guidelines. But as you all know, the affordability in Wareham is kind of a different kettle of fish. And so what we're doing at Rosebrook is actually market rate housing. And Michael will talk about specifically what we're doing at two different locations.
Thank you, Linda, and it's great to be back with all of you and to give you a bit of an update on some of the projects that we've been working on together. I think when I first landed here in town, we were working together with the town on the business overlay district. And both at Charlotte Furnace Road and the South Coast Development and All America Assisted Living are part of that business development overlay district. And Rosebrook Place is part of it, adjacent to it. One of the things that we have seen and heard repeatedly in the last few years as we're working with employers that we're trying to bring to the area is a need for multifamily housing. We've built some significant neighborhoods of single-family homes, and there's a lot of traditional targeted low-income or affordable housing in the community, and there's a lot of market-rate single-family. But there's not been a lot of new development for attached multifamily housing in the town over the last few years. There are two programs that we're currently involved in. One that I'm going to talk about at Rosebrook Place. Linda talked about the state's new initiative around workforce housing. It's targeted to employees who they're trying to recruit and retain in Massachusetts because our housing costs continue to go through the roof and are making us less competitive as a state. The target income is 80 to 110% of average Massachusetts household income. And this particular development would fit the criteria for that program. To date, the state Baker administration has only really focused on gateway cities, but we think there's an interesting opportunity for Wareham to do a smaller community that's consistent with their strategy of being able to be part of a mixed-use development at predetermined development sites, which is adjacent to a 43 expedited development site. This proposal is 65 units on 4 floors, garden level to the rear. So if you know the site where the hotel is, the lower level faces out over the bogs and the farm. Design is consistent with the design standards that the town adopted and we have complied with throughout the development. This has 9 one-bedrooms and 1 bath. These are fairly generous size bedrooms because what we're finding with our market study is that there is a demand for that. And then 56 2-bedroom and 2 bath. The furniture and the fixtures, and we'll show you some pictures of it, are trying to tie both the agricultural and the seaside community together. So you'll see some of the agricultural finishes on the outside and the exteriors, but you'll also see some of the nautical themes inside in terms of finishes and design. The goal is really to appeal to 2 groups. Folks who are already in the area who are downsizing and who are looking to get away from the single-family home that they have, but still want to keep their connections to Wareham and the surrounding area. And the second is young professionals who, at this point in time, maybe have not made a commitment to the area, but are working in the area. Think of folks who are working at Navionics or medical techs or nurses or physician's assistants who are working at South Coast. There's not any new high-quality available housing in the immediate area, and we think this fits that need pretty well. Also, the site being so close to 495, easy access to the commuter rail up to Boston and Lakeville, and hopefully someday soon here to commuter rail. This, if you're facing the hotel, this would be to the right of the hotel, and this would be one of the main entries. Recognize the color schemes consistent with some of what's there. Again, 65 units, 4 floors, very generous in size, with the orientation to the larger property. So that folks who live here will have access not only to the restaurants and the offices that are nearby, but to the bike trails, the walking trails, the perimeter of the bog, which many folks have probably seen people staying at the hotel using as well. Again, some more of the finishes. You can see this is the entry area coming into the hotel. This is part of the entry area, and Linda will show a 360 very brief video. But as you come in the main entrance, this is a glass curtain wall to the rear of the lobby, and it overlooks the bog. This is sitting up 1 level above the lower level, so you really have a full view out to the river and to the bog behind you. To the distance on the right, you can see the medical office building. That's the deck on that. And we have some of the units to the rear, again, with larger glass window and door areas to be able to fully take advantage of the views.
I hope this works.
This is the,
No.
no? Coming in the main lobby, the elevator lobby. This is meant to be sustainable in terms of walkability to the restaurants and the bank nearby. And again, you can see all of the visuals to try and fully embrace the larger outdoor elements of the neighborhood.
Much like they've done at the assisted living facility, you can see right through.
So if these are apartments, what is this space supposed to be? Is it concierge space or something?
This is the concierge space and lower level, the community room. So
Okay.
As you come into the building, the idea is that this is kind of the common space that you would be able to enjoy.
Okay.
And again, staged to take full advantage of both the restaurants in front of you
Mhm.
and the open space behind.
Thank you.
And 65 units total. We're under construction now. We're using Delbrook Scanlon, who has done a lot of our work. They built the All-America Assisted Living. They built a number of the buildings for us on the front. 4 floors, the 9 one-bedrooms and the 56 two-bedrooms. And the market study on these is basically just barely above the Boston SMSA rents for an affordable. So for a 2-bedroom, the Boston affordable at 80% of median household income is roughly $1,865. These are just a little bit over $1,900. And I think the 2-bedroom units are 1,100 square feet, so pretty generous size apartments.
And you're comparing them to the Boston you're comparing them to the Boston SMSA?
Yes, which is
Yep.
where we are
Yep.
in terms of the affordability. We are under construction with this. We are looking for occupancy in the fall of 2018. What we've seen is significant demand for this already, and we expect that the lease-up will be less than 10 months. And I think that says an awful lot about 2 things: the desirability of living here in town and the lack of a product that meets this need, both to existing residents and new folks who are coming in to work here. We would like to stay in touch with the town administrator, town manager, and the board about potential of working with the Commonwealth in having this recognized as a community-scale, smaller workforce housing initiative, because we know that the Baker administration is very eager to find examples that they can see replicated across the state. Before turning from this site, we just want to this in some way completes the Rosebrook Place element, and we just wanted to tie it together. We have always seen this. The front buildings are the 99, the Cape Cod 5, and the restaurant buildings where Five Guys and Saga Fusions are. To the left is the hotel. The larger building to the right in the rear is where the apartments are, with the parking down below. On either end, our goal is to connect this neighborhood to the neighborhood development to the rear. So you'll see a couple of icons that we're going to pull up now that help us to do that. I'm sure many of you have been in Post Office Square in Boston at the Post Office Square garage and seen the Milk Street Cafe. This structure on the left here is basically the same size as that, and we're thinking the same type of uses, whether it's a year-round or seasonal restaurant use. It will tie together with a green space and some activity, the hotel on one side and the apartment community on the other. And we're trying to activate this as a way to pull together the different pieces of the neighborhood. You can see the street scale on the, we were going to do a full frontal image of the building, and we didn't like the rendering we had. So we decided to pull it at the last minute. But you can see the scale of what the building on the right-hand side would be. That's basically the corner of the apartments. We'll switch to the other side. And this is going down the hill, so that's the apartment building. You can see it stepping into the grade, 3 stories at the front. And as you come down the hill, where the car is the road over to Rosebrook Business Park, down to All-America Assisted Living and Medical Office Space. The sidewalks that are already existing and trying to step in and, again, tie those pieces together. Part of a sustainable development approach that we've been committed to from the beginning. We think this will be an exciting place for folks to live, and being able to have it at your front door, coffee shop probably on the corner by the hotel, and 3 or 4 restaurants available immediately there in close proximity to the highways or to the downtown or the GATRA as well that runs through there regularly. Going to move on to a smaller project in Main Street first, and then unless folks would like to ask any questions on the neighborhood at Rosebrook first.
No.
We've talked to you folks about this previously. We've titled this one Kinko Landing, and it's on Main Street, the old screen house. I think it's one of the few remaining screen houses in the area. Most of them have burned down over the years. We worked with Northeastern University, the graduate school students at the School for Urban Planning and Public Policy to do an updated analysis on this site about its viability for commercial, for educational, for potentially a museum, for the cranberry industry to help support the tourism that we're involved in here, as well as housing. And they came back with a recommendation that there was a deep market for a deep subsidized, smaller apartments, primarily targeted to seniors in town, and that there was an element that we could adapt and reuse in the screen house to make it kind of an iconic structure along Main Street and enliven it for education, for history, and for visiting and museum space. We think this ties very nicely to the Main Street efforts that the town has been engaged in, and also is a nice bridge to the Tremont Nail facility that the town is actively engaged in. And this is right on the edge of the historic district, so it would be deemed contributing, but I don't believe is in the district at the moment. We've also had very early and positive conversations with your housing authority about working with us on their leasing efforts where there's such a demand for affordable units. So the screen house is to the right. That's a restoration and renovation project. We originally looked at that as a first phase. We're currently looking at it as the last phase of this, because we would like to be able to access not only local funds if possible, but also the state tourism dollars for
Cultural facilities.
thank you. I used to run the program. I should remember that. Cultural Facilities Fund. To the left is the housing components, and I think Linda has the details on that. 3 separate phases. Phase 1 would be new residential, 24 one-bedroom units, about 700 square feet. A typical public senior housing that was built in the 60s and 70s is closer to 500 square feet, so this is a little bit larger than that. It would be attached to the screen house structure to take advantage of that site. That site has some significant grade changes to the rear. Phase 2 would be a new residential building, which is the one in the blue, and that has 14 one-bedroom units at 700 square feet. And then Phase 3 would be the screen house renovation, about 2,400 square feet of office and cultural group and museum space. We would restore the streetscape and the historic facade. That is the elevation that we previously previewed for the new building that would be built along the streetscape for the new housing, the new 14 units. And the last one is the restoration of the screen house and the scoop house. Again, fronting right on Main Street, we would create the circulation in front of the existing building and restore it. And again, Linda, when we worked together a number of years ago, talked about the gaps in a smile. You've got a very definite smile along Main Street that you filled in with some great new development and preservation of existing streetscape. This helps to tie those gaps back together and kind of complete the streetscape as you're going towards the historic district. we would like to work with your board. We don't believe that we would need to do this as a friendly 40B because the zoning allows us to do the multifamily here, and we've been in front of your boards before. But we think this is a good example for us to be able to work together, and we know from some early conversations that there's some potential to work with the town with some of its financial resources to provide as deep a subsidy as possible for these units to make them as affordable as possible for Wareham residents. Happy to answer any questions, and again, I very much appreciate the opportunity for Linda and I to be able to come in and give you an update on some of the things that we've been excited to work on.
Okay, if we could just have the lights back on from someone? Ooh, that hurts. Yeah, that was rough. Probably should have had one bank on first. Selectman Whiteside?
Yes, first of all, I want to say thank you very much for continuing to invest in the town of Wareham. It's
Our
a
pleasure.
fabulous town that has lots of opportunities, and it's nice to see people who are making good decisions, at least in my opinion. I would like to say that the reuse of historic buildings is fabulous. And I learned a long time ago from a politician in New Bedford, make use of what you have and don't try and reinvent the wheel. And it seems to me that that's what you're doing, is you are taking what you have and figuring out the best use for it. The Screenhouse, you know, it's obviously seen many iterations of whatever. But it's a really nice location. So I just want to say thank you. I guess I was supporting everything that you've said.
Thank you.
Patrick?
I really don't have much to say. You're working towards some good development, and, you know, we just hope it'll keep, and I hope it gets filled and things work out. It looks like the economy's starting to come back a bit, so I think that should help.
Absolutely.
And, you know, the town can't survive without projects that create good quality growth. As you well know, finances nowadays with 2.5 make it very difficult.
Sure.
These kinds of projects are what help it survive.
It's, having sat in a municipal government seat myself a number of years ago, there's nothing like new growth to help pave
Well,
over some of the holes.
The bummer is when the economy goes bad and the growth number goes away,
Yes.
because it's a huge chunk of money
Yep.
that you lose, you know.
We did not include in this the estimated project completion for the apartments at Rosebrook is just over 13 million. So that will be in addition to the growth that's already there from the investments that were already made.
Thanks.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Mike. I'm hoping that as we go down that section, that we've been waiting for this for quite a while. If you remember, you did the Screen House probably 5 years ago. You started the process of changing the zoning, et cetera, in the area. So I have a lot of patience. I learned very, very shortly in the municipal world, nothing happens overnight. Everything takes a long time. So it's really great to see these projects coming forward finally. And I'm hoping maybe somehow we can work together and tie in where we have the Tremont Nail, where we had that piece years ago. We were talking about, you know, the affordable senior housing next to the railroad area, which is, again, if we do the trail and everything else, we might be able to work something out as well. So I hope to speak to you on that as well.
Sure.
Thank you.
Certainly open to that. Mr. Chair?
Yeah. No, these are both, to my mind, fabulous projects. Just a few months ago, we had a different project of a much greater scale come before us. And I have to say the board pretty much universally panned it and ordered me to write a letter to DACD that did not support the project as it was proposed. The difference between that and how that was not going to fit in with the town, and both of these projects and the way that they do fit in, one, to provide the kind of housing that people who work here or who would want to work here need but can't find right now, and in the second instance, to provide affordable housing, but to seniors, which means people who already live here substantially, who are going to need housing in the future as their income stream, you know, diminishes as they get older. Unfortunately, not everybody is going to have a pension anymore. Not everybody is going to retire in a large 401k. We know from our housing authority that their waiting list, and I don't know that it just includes people from Wareham, but it's over 700 people. So the notion of partnering with them in this, I think, is a great idea. We're told repeatedly that we have a lot of money in the community preservation funds, especially for housing, affordable housing. I can't remember the last time we used any to actually support affordable housing, so those coffers, should have a fair amount of money. And I would encourage you personally, and also as the chairman of this board, to think about applying for community preservation funds in this instance. Very pleased with this. That's an area of town along Main Street that could use a little bit of revitalization. As you know, we're engaged in Tremont and Ale and seeing what we can do out there. Between that, I hope some future efforts in the village to do some things in this. I think we can get away from some of the urban, not urban, but ex-urban, suburban sprawl type of development that the town has seen over the last 25 years. Get people back into a village concept where they can walk to the things they need, where you don't have a 5-mile ambulance ride from Westfield to get to Toby Hospital. If you're elderly and something befalls you, you can just be carted right down the street, which will make life a lot easier and will save a lot of lives in the end. So this is the kind of scale of development that we seek in Wareham, and that's something I would say not only to you, but anybody else who is coming to here to do business in this regard. And we appreciate you coming in tonight very much.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to provide the update, and we look forward to the invitation to see how we could work together, especially on the Main Street project.
Great.
To Mr. Slavin's point, we were all ready to go, and then the market went away, so
I know, I remember.
the market's back.
Yeah, strike while the iron's hot, absolutely.
Thank you all very much.
Yes, thank you again.
Thank you
Good
both.
night.
Take care. Okay, gonna jump back to, what do you want to do?
Let's do the
Money.
beneficial interest.
Yeah. ACAP.
Yeah, you saw the email? Oh, no, I'm talking, never mind.
Go ahead.
I had somewhere else.
Oh, okay.
Oh, good.
Next, we have
Thanks, Linda.
for Wines and More.
Yeah, this is simply a change of beneficial interest. It's not a change of manager, so.
No, it was more I thought it was originally.
I never understand these.
It's actually just a change of director, actually,
Yeah.
from James W. Clarkin to Elizabeth Walker would be the motion. That's all it
Second.
is.
Okay, motion made by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstain. It's 500. And then we have a couple of one-days. It's always good, somebody's having a party.
Okay, first one, bartending service of New England LLC. They're before us quite frequently. They're from 13 West End Ave, Middleborough, and they're looking for a date of Friday, November 17th for a retirement party from the hours of 6 to 10 p.m., located at the Box Mill Hall, 158 Tohono Road, Wareham, Mass. License for sale of beer and wine, and it's for profit, and all the paperwork's in place.
Second.
Okay, motion to approve by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain. It's unanimous, 500. Next up.
Bartending service, New England again, and this is for... Okay, and this is for November 11th on Saturday for a wedding reception. Hours are 3:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. Again, at the Box Mill Hall, 158 Tohono Road, Wareham, Mass. For beer and wine, for profit. All paperwork is in place and as required.
Second.
Okay, motion approved by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. 3:30 to, what time did you say?
Says 3:30 to... Look it up again for you. 3:30 to 8 p.m.
Oh, 3:30 to 8. I thought you said 3:30 to 11. I was going to say partay.
No, not sure if they could last that long.
I know we couldn't last that long. That doesn't mean they can't last that long.
Yeah.
Okay, that takes care of the licenses and applications.
Next, we have the article that was approved at town meeting for the TIF program for 5 years for Stone Path Malt LLC. I've gone through it. I think everybody has looked at it. It's a standard 5-year. As with the, the hotel,
Right.
people look at the tax being deleted for over the 5-year period by percentage. But what happens is, in this particular case, we have, I believe, is $1.8 million in equipment and machinery going in, which is taxable, et cetera. So at the end of the time frame in 10 years, we're still way ahead of the game if we do
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah, and if
We
history,
don't really lose.
if history tells us anything, approving the hotel TIF was a great idea.
It basically is,
It's a no-brainer.
in a 2-year time frame, it's completely paid itself.
Gets paid
back
for
on that
itself.
side.
And every year, as the TIF starts changing, we're getting more and
More
more.
and more.
Right.
hotels.
And again, the nice thing here is these are only 5 years,
Mhm.
which is not uncommon to be a 10-year for a lot of places,
Yeah.
sometimes longer than that, so we're very fortunate. Make a motion to accept the Stone Path Malt LLC TIF program as laid out in the paperwork we have.
Okay, motion
Authorized by the town meeting.
to
Yes.
approve the TIF agreement by Selectman Slavin, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, abstained, 500, it's unanimous.
Just want to point out that a lot of the buildings in the original park were
All done
also
that way.
built with TIFs.
We actually went, just going back a little further, we actually went from 1999, I believe, to 2013 without any TIF agreements. And in the interim, the town of Plymouth gave out 17 of them, so I'm not quite sure what people thought they were saving when they discouraged these from coming forward.
I think they misunderstood what the concept was and what the net result would be, unfortunately. And we did lose out.
Okay, next up, we had the review of the fee structure with the Department of Natural Resources, but the Harbor Masters requested we do that next week. So now we have the meeting with the Marine Resources Commission. Good evening.
Good evening. Don Jepson?
Yeah. You came solo, huh?
Yes. And the fact that, I thought Larry would be here, but the fact that he's not speaks volumes. You asked for, in addition to the agenda, talking about the future of the Marine Resources Commission.
Right, that's one of the areas. I've actually got your email here that I can read from.
Okay.
There's a couple of areas we can dispense with pretty quickly. The one is regarding the liaison. The liaison appointment process, believe it or not, under our policy, the sitting chairman is the god of liaisons.
Okay, say that again, please.
I'm essentially the god of liaisons this year. The next chairman will be the god of liaisons next year. The chairman makes the liaison appointments. It's not something that's voted or covered by the board in toto. It's the chairman who makes those decisions.
Chairman of the
So,
Board of Selectmen.
right.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's why, previously, I had thought that perhaps a change might be in order, and that's why I gave you Alan.
Okay. I don't want to get into what...
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's kind of a moot point.
29th, I think you're all familiar with that. The situation that we have basically revolves, I can cover three of them at the same time. Communication, response, and acknowledgement. I think a lot of that was covered in the letter that I sent. And then the response to the letter that I had kind of speaks volumes too, is that we did get no acknowledgement or communication. And I think that's why we lost two of the members. I try to look back a little bit in history. One of the things that we've tried to do since Trent left was basically to kind of focus on a couple of things rather than try to keep too many balls in the air. And so we followed the advice that he gave, and we focused on dredging primarily. We also sent in what our recommendations were concerning the Coalition for Buzzards Bay and the Onset Bay center, that education center, which they want to, and we gave that an approval, but we also listed a number of things, and I can pretty much give you a handout. One of the concerns that I have is I don't think a lot of what was written in the minutes of our meeting were shared with everyone. Otherwise, there would have been some response to them, and I think that's been a major thing that we need to work on. The other thing is, we proposed with the dredging that there would be a consultant. Never got an acknowledgement, never got told why that would not happen. We tried to do our duty, to do by the taxpayers in this, in the town. We tried to put that forward as a recommendation, as a proposed article. We had two that we wanted to put forward. One was, again, so that the taxpayers could weigh in on whether or not a consultant should be hired, because twice in the past, the way it was handled, it was failed. And we think we're a third time at bat in trying to do that. The other thing we tried to do was to get some money so that we could do some educational brochures and not be out of pocket. Acting Chairman Slavin came up with a solution, and we've been able to work with the Harbor Master's office to get printing material, but that doesn't solve the educational brochures, one of which we had in there. I thought there was a lot of merit to that, was that there is no map available for people to find out what the public access is, and so that's hanging there. We also tried to form a shellfish committee, and basically was told that it wouldn't pass muster. So there's a certain amount of frustration, and I was hoping that maybe you could come up with some suggestions and solutions. Otherwise, I don't see much of a future for the Marine Resources Commission.
Okay, I'll let, I know Alan's attended some of the meetings and has heard some of your points in further depth, so is there anything you'd like to say in response to Mr. Jepson's concerns here?
I think this really goes back maybe as much as 8 or 9 years ago. The Marine Resources Commission was almost disbanded by the Board of Selectmen back then. And it basically was left, but it was left as an advisory board, which is really kind of a problem, because an advisory board is something where they basically have some things they look at and are supposed to come back to the Board of Selectmen with possible agenda and actual things before us, and then we would decide if we wanted to go forward and how it would be handled.
Mm-hmm.
And it really hasn't gone that way because there's been such a void. And there's been a problem, even when I was on that Marine Resources, I'm thinking back, maybe it's 9, 10 years ago. I think that was the first committee I was ever on, actually. There was Frank O'Brien, the other Frank who worked for Mass DOT as the highway engineer. They both lived in the Onset area. There was Mr. Barry, who's a longtime resident and stuff, very much involved. Craig Schuster was there, also very involved. And it was interesting because it was 5 members and 2 associates, and there was a waiting list of people who wanted to get on the board. And we've gone from one extreme to the other. And I think Lynn Gay actually was on for a while, and David Begley was on when we were all working to rewrite the harbor management plan, which was, Wareham was the first town to actually do a harbor management plan. The town somehow was able to get a $50,000 grant and hired a firm to do a lot of the work. And, you know, the idea was to upgrade and put a new one in, and then also take a look at the management council, because that was left off that first time because there was a lot of controversy about that as well. So it's basically morphed into something which, it's a committee that's there, but it hasn't had any action or responsibility or any input at all really in a long time. And again, because it's hard to get members to be there constantly, it creates problems for them as well. And I don't have an easy answer, because they took care of the Shellfish Commission, et cetera, a while back, and turned it into the harbor master who took over that particular position. And we've really got, you know, our director of economic development and planning, and we have the harbor master, and their jobs with Gary's position as natural resources overlap somewhat. And maybe we sit back and take a look at this particular committee and come up with a way of putting this together that has some value to the members and to the town. Because right now, it doesn't work because they don't have the ability to do anything, actually. That's the real problem. I mean, they're trying to do certain things that come forward, but they don't have, how do I put it? They don't have any skin in the game as far as getting it done right now. And that, to me, is, if I was on a committee, I'd basically, pulling what little hair I have left of my head out, or I'd basically say thank you and see you later. And I'm sure that's frustrating everybody that's involved in both directions, because there's just no, communication's not good, and there's just no line of, of authority back and forth. There's no way to start something on their end and finish it with us right now. And that really goes back, unfortunately, to when they tried to disband that particular commission, and they took all their teeth away and left it there, but left it as advisory to the selectmen, which means it just went into the never land. That's my comment.
Yeah. One of the,
If I could add.
yeah, go ahead.
What Selectman Slavin is saying is correct. I talked to, and it's not because of our committee, the one since I've been chairman, I think we've done an excellent job of trying to communicate with and made sure that all of the information that was in the meeting was distributed to the Board of Selectmen. But to quote somebody that was on the board when the commission, when you were on it, Alan, I talked to Frank O'Brien, who'd been on it for 22 years, and it goes back in time. He said that it's an advisory committee, and he said it doesn't make any difference who the town administrator was or who the selectman was. The voice never seemed to get recognized or really was able to communicate. We were very concerned about that, and one of the things he said, we need to get empowered, so that's why I tried to put two proposals for articles on the agenda, and I'll say for technicalities, those got blocked. What I do want to leave with you, and all of the information is on the town website, the letters we have, and I have a summary. And one of the things I'd like to recognize is the contribution of Larry Bears, who is not here tonight. I recruited him to be on the commission. He started off, even before he was an actual member, the first potential meeting that he came to, I gave him the older harbor management plan. He came up with a simplified, streamlined way of doing it, which the selectmen went with. It cost the town no money whatsoever. And we kept the other ones on the website. They're still there. The previous one and then some of the drafts, because there was a lot of work that went into that. There was a lot of verbiage. But what Larry was able to come up with was a solution so that the day it's printed, it won't be out of date, and doing a lot of references. And the selectmen went with that. One of the other things is going back to December of 2014, long before the navigational aids became an issue. Larry put forward a proposal of how we should handle the dredging and what should be done, and that's in the records, and I will hand out the accolades to him for the work that he did on that. And he's really a very talented person, and he should be more recognized than he is for the contribution he made in the short period he was here. He hit the ground running. So what I want to do is just leave you some perspective on the history of the marine resources. A lot of this is just taken from the minutes that were sent, and as I said, I had concern that maybe a lot of this information didn't get to you, so I will pass that out,
Yes.
if that's okay?
Absolutely.
And that
Go ahead.
concludes my remarks.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
No, thank you for coming in, and, thank you for the work you've done, and also for the work you've tried to do. I know it can be frustrating. Okay.
Okay, next you have town's large-scale capital needs. You can start, that's yours.
Yeah. Yeah, I put this on. Okay.
No, it's actually mine. I asked you to put it on, remember?
Never mind.
No.
It's somebody's.
I did.
It's fine.
Considering it's likely to turn controversial at some point, do you really want to grasp a hold of it now?
Sure.
Well, good, then we can be co-victims on this one. The town has several large-scale capital needs out there that need to be met in the future in some fashion. Right now, we're looking through the Mass School Building Authority at building an elementary school, or schools, as it may turn out. We've also had members on this board and people out in the community talk about the need for public safety complex, something to update the police station, the EMS, possibly partnering with a fire district or two to share resources to make that happen. And people also would like to see something of a community center, either built or utilized or put into service. So the reason for putting this on the agenda is to discuss what we can do, prioritize which among those sort of competing interests for the dollars the board supports, and then that way help along the process for at least getting one of these things done at some point in time. So that's the reason it's on the agenda. So I'd just like to hear your thoughts about that.
As far as I'm concerned, I remember once upon a time when I was on a board some time ago, we prioritized our list based on what we thought was the most important things. And of course, public safety was one of the things we held the highest. And secondly was education. So those kind of balance 1-2. And whether you want to flip one and say, well, education is more important to you than public safety or whatever, they're still in the same vein, so to speak. And we've, needed to do something with the facilities at the police station for many, many years. I remember talking Claire, and I felt bad because I talked Claire into creating a committee. And she didn't want to do it because she had sat on it before. I remember when she sat on it way back, and it never went anywhere, and it was disbanded. And I said to her, well, let's do it again, only this time, let's kind of just keep it going, right? Keep the thing going so that we have a lot of the information, and we just kind of keep refreshing it, so somewhere down the line, it would become valuable to us, and not just say, okay, well, we did this study, but the hell with it, we'll just throw it away. There was a Board of Selectmen that immediately disbanded them. And, Claire was frustrated like you wouldn't believe, and I felt so bad that I had talked her into it because the same thing happened to her that happened to her before. And she did a great job. They went around to new stations being built, and they did a lot of research and a lot of good work into all of that stuff. And so it just got completely disbanded. And of course, that would have led to more of the conversations as far as public safety building is concerned. And I think somewhere along the way, the town's got to get wise, the districts and everybody got to get together. Enough with the baloney about, well, you're going to take over us, we're going to do this. Nobody wants to take over anybody.
Right.
All we want to do is save some money, put together a complex that works for everybody in a place that works for everybody, that we can all share and, and bring all the 911 stuff together and, everything together in one place. It makes so much sense. That seems to be the reason why we don't do it, Do we need a schools? Yeah, the schools, let's face it, Deacon's is trashed. There's the Minot's been trashed for a long time. I don't know if you ever went over there and saw the shower area there, but they don't use it anymore. It's been trashed. It's just old stuff, antiquated, that needs to be upgraded. And if you can't get behind those two things as far as a sort of a priority, I don't know what you can get behind. It is what it is. I mean, that's the only things we do in this community. We try to protect the people, and we try to educate them. They don't get anything else, really. I mean, you know, I mean, it's you know, there's no trash pickup anymore. There's a lot of things we can't give them anymore. And rightfully so. We just don't have the money to do it. I mean, you know, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say, well, we should spend money we don't have, because I know Derek would never allow that to happen, which is good. Believe me, that's a good thing, not a bad thing, okay? But it's time to prioritize a list, come up with a list, and say, okay, this is the direction we're moving in, because we should tie it into the master plan and those kinds of things, so that, you know, we get a direction that we need to head in. And I think this is a good conversation to have.
Good. Alan?
Well, this is something we've talked about for a long time. In the town's history, we've always, when we've done things, sometimes like the police station, the police chief took what was available rather than what he really needed, and we paid for that because the building's not expandable. I've had conversations with Kevin, I'm sure Patrick has also, and Kevin is, at this point, is kind of frustrated to the point that, as far as he's concerned, if we were add an addition to the existing building, he'd be happy, because the thing is not working, it's not safe. We know we've been pushing hard for, you know, doing something with the fire and water district, at least there, and moving some things in, but with their new project, you know, with a water purification plant, et cetera, they're probably 4 or 5 years out doing something with their fire station now, because it only gets so many dollars out. So we need to do something not different, but something reasonable. When I say reasonable, things that we can actually do versus things that are dreams. And unfortunately, the dreams are more fun because they sound great, but they may never happen because they are dreams. Peter talked to me about this a little bit, just letting me know what's going to go on the agenda. My notes were that the schools, because of the amount of financial money that comes back through the MSBA program, if we can get through a debt exclusion, is probably the most, I won't call it low-hanging fruit, because it's pretty expensive fruit, but it's probably the one that we can get done most likely, especially where they're seriously talking about, you know, putting things together in a campus setup, and it has a lot of, you know, fringe benefits that are available to us as well. Public safety is definitely number 2 on the list of how we do it. I've been pushing for a community center, and my community center idea is a little different than what most people think of, because I was looking at the Council on Aging. We got almost 8,000 seniors in this town, and we have nothing for them really in the long run of what they actually need, if you look at some other places around. But the problem is that there are community centers with senior centers in a lot of places that the towns didn't pay for it. They were actually, the money was raised through outside firms, grants, et cetera. So we need to get things, again, even like the library, Council on Aging, Boys and Girls Club, get them all together. And I know this is kind of a dream for me, obviously, because it's not easy, and it's to sit down as a group and figure out how do we make this work and go out as a group, because individually, neither one has enough strength at this time to make it work. But there are towns out there that are actually getting this together, so that would be number 3. And I look at Town Hall. It was never designed as really for what it is today. And I look at the library, and I'm sure everybody's going to shoot me in the head when I say this, but except for the lack of parking, the library, I think, would make a hell of a town hall, because it's all on one level and goes around, and would really work for offices, et cetera. So that's why a community center could be a town hall, community center, all put together. But that is definitely a dream. Thank you.
Selectman Whiteside?
Yep. You and I had a conversation a while ago about what our needs are, basically spurred by the fact that I'm sitting on that MSB, whatever it is.
MSBA.
Yep. And, yeah, what I'd like to say is that I think we need to back up one step, okay? I think we need to start with, what do we have? What do we have? We have buildings that are not usable,
Yep.
that are on this campus, right here, okay? We need to, let me back up. When you're a bank, you provide services. You don't own anything. When you're a town, you provide services. you own as little as you can. You own a school, public safety, that kind of thing. So I know that Mr. Sullivan has been working on a compilation of all of the town-owned property. I'm not sure that we shouldn't step back and say, well, you know, yeah, we need a school today, we needed a school 10 years ago. However, what are we gonna need in 20 years, okay? And where is the population center going to be? And as one of the people on that other committee said, where's the sea level gonna be? That's gonna actually determine where some of these things can go. Patrick made a very interesting comment about the master plan. The master plan, if we had adopted it way back when, was the perfect roadmap. And so I'm hoping that we haven't messed around with it too much. But I think we really need to look at what we have. Why would we build a school? And I'm not suggesting this is a solution, but why would we build a school way over there when we have 2 main school buildings right here in this campus? Plus, we have available real estate. Plus, we're sitting in a building which is only partly functioning. I mean, if it were up to me, I'd take the back half of this building down tomorrow morning and build something that made sense. So I really would urge all of us to, before I'm not disagreeing, we need to prioritize these things. We also need to know what we have, because we have a couple of buildings that we could sell. Where do those funds go back to under the law?
Sale of real estate fund.
I'm sorry?
Sale of real estate fund.
Can they go into building repairs?
You can use them for real estate purposes. Most likely purchasing new, really not really repairs, purchasing new or bonds on real estate and such.
What about construction?
What about?
Maybe new if you were, I would say not necessarily construction on there. It's really purchasing some of the new stuff.
It's an argument you can make, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, upgrade?
Yeah, so if you're going to do, you might be able to do it for some upgrades, or if you're bonding out for, make bond payments, or, so it has to coordinate with town real estate essentially.
Okay. But it just seems to me, I mean, and I hate to go back to a town meeting where things really went wrong. We have a building sitting over there that's empty, not usable, not used, taking up a lot of space. Why is it sitting there? Why don't we put a bulldozer next to it? And I'm not asking you that question.
Through it or next to it?
Right through it. I think having a community center concept, a library community center concept is great. That's one that we kicked around 4 or 5 years ago. We have a very large piece of real estate here. And are we making the best use of it?
Probably not. It's the house that Jack built over the years.
You know what happened to Jack?
One of the problems with this campus, as you well know, is it's subject to flooding in the back.
Right.
And that's a problem.
Right.
I mean, it literally goes almost up to town hall, which is sort of like, this used to be the shelter, you know. I don't know if you guys remember that, but I remember when we were at Sioux Speech when I was a kid, every time there was a hurricane, they'd say, well, you go up to town hall, that's where you're gonna go, you know?
And good luck.
And good luck getting there. You know, you might have to swim.
Yeah, we become an archipelago in a hurricane. You know, it's just a series of islands.
Not even a hurricane. That last storm that we had,
Yeah.
which technically, I guess, was a hurricane at some of the wind speeds, large amount of this town went underwater, including the back of Main Street.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it does, it happens.
Yeah.
I think what we do, though, is we
Wind
know what
pushes
we
it right
have.
up.
We know that when we look at the particular, whether schools or public safety, as we look at it, rather than just say, okay, we're gonna put it here, is to look at all the different options and clean it up once and for all as we do it.
Right,
Not
do it
just-
right.
Not just, well, we'll put this to the side, we're gonna do this here. You can't do this. You got a building here, you know, you have the old town hall that's in place right now that we use. you know, and you have a couple buildings down on the far side near the track, you know, that really aren't used up for storage, et cetera, there's space there. There's pieces here that we can make work. You have to do it smart.
Right.
Because money is very difficult for us. It's for any town right now. When I go to meetings, you know, out of Wareham, it's the same no matter where I go. They say the same exact things, you know, and it's no different. We're all in the same situation. Some are in better shape than others, but at the end of the day, we're all going down the same corridor,
Yeah.
and there's no easy solution. So you gotta do this very smart and intelligently. You just don't go out and spend money, because that's what people did when the dot-coms were going booming. Everybody bought new fire stations, new police stations, new town halls. Well, that money's long gone that was like that. So anyone who didn't take advantage of that is now sitting, you know, way behind the curve for everybody else.
Well, the school reimbursement is going to be a 72, possibly a 73%.
Yeah, but I mean,
Which is-
that takes it from a dream to an actuality.
Right,
Yeah, makes it feasible, potentially.
right.
Yeah, oh, yes, absolutely.
But only with a lot of pre-selling.
Yes.
And, you know, the only problem, of course, with SBA is that, you know, they won't let you build for the future. They restrict you in what you can build. Because remember, they wanted to build a high school. And I don't know if you remember the bubble that went through there not too long ago. It's built for like 900 kids, if I remember right, when we did it. It's about 900 kids. And we, at one point, had about 11, almost 1,200 in there at one point, when we had that bubble go through, and we had to add the things in the back and, you know, all that to try to make it all work. And, you know, it was foreseeable when we built the building, but they would only let you build to certain capacity, not what you think you're gonna need. It's just the way it is, and unfortunately, you have to live with those constraints, because they're paying, in that case, it was 73%, I think, is what it ended up being. So that's a pretty good chunk of money. Matter of fact, the new school over here, we got in the 80s. When we built the middle school, we added on the middle school. We got into the 80s with that one. And, you know, it's kind of like a lottery kind of thing of how you end up, you know, when they put all the numbers together, where you end up. But we ended up really well on this school. Very well in this school. And the high school turned out to be very nice. I mean, it is sort of like maybe in a precarious position.
It sunk 2 inches.
Where I might not have put it, but it's
It's sunk 2 inches in 25 years.
that's not bad.
That's not bad.
In a wetland, that's pretty
Wetland,
good.
that's pretty good.
That's pretty darn good.
By the time it's New Orleans, it'll be 10 generations down the road.
Exactly. I saw a whole,
10 generations.
by then it will need a new one by the time it sinks, so we're in good shape.
Yeah.
That
We won't
building
even have to
works.
demo it, Judy, it'll just disappear.
And by the way, now it's functioning normally because the bubble's gone through and, you know, it's working
Yeah,
great.
there's only 400 kids in the building now.
Yeah, so it makes a big difference, you know? But yeah, I mean, there's lots to talk about, that's for sure, and we should continue to talk about it. You know, this is the first time it's come up in a long time, and like I said with Claire, we totally just blow it off and forget about it, and then we don't do anything about it again, and there's no conversation, and it needs to stay in the forefront, you know, because it does need to get done. And I'd like to hear what Derek wants as well, because, I mean, he's the guy. What do you have to say about all this?
I have to say, it's, doesn't matter what we build if we don't have the staff to put in there.
Well, that's a good point, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, yeah, I had a meeting with, been having meetings with department heads on the budgets, and we started talking about properties and such, and one said, I don't care where you put me, as long as you could give me the staff to actually run it.
That's a
You
good
know,
point.
That hit the nail right there. I mean, we proposed working with the seniors, trying to create a space over in the library, and the response in the news, we got in the newspapers was, hell no, we won't go. We have too many individuals running in different directions. Yeah, and, you know, I always get the same response, oh, this little amount of money won't affect your budget. And
Every amount of money affects your budget.
Everything does.
Yeah.
You know, it's, and I don't know, so somewhere along the way, I guess, failed because people suddenly think we're rich, so, and all the requests we're getting, and I understand it, people that care about causes should be advocates, but it seems to be that they're willing to step on everyone else's throats to get what they want, and it's just sort of disheartening. So, apologize to go down there, but that's, what we're seeing.
Judy?
The other thing that, I mean, we're talking about public safety in schools and stuff. We had to build a new salt shed. We have other ancillary buildings that are necessary for running this municipality. I know there's a capital planning committee, but we as a board don't really sort of say, oh, we need 17 dump trucks and, grader, whatever it is. You can't run a town without the staff, but you can't run a town with buildings that are falling down. And we have put the maintenance off for so long, and, had a nice holiday. Mr. Sullivan's correct.
Maybe we need to buy some lottery tickets.
Well, you know where to find
Nice
them.
COA fundraiser going on.
Maybe you could hit one of those, $250 million things for the town,
Wouldn't do it.
We could spend it here in 10 minutes, that's the problem.
No, wouldn't cover it all.
No, we'll come back to this. I think it was, it's a good initial discussion. There's a lot of good,
One question, wasn't there
thoughts.
a plan
Yeah.
put together previously? Wasn't there a...
well, we had a
committee-
master
didn't they
plan in the
put-
90s.
There's a capital plan.
Yeah, but
We have a capital plan that goes out 5 years, and, I think at one point, basically, with the capital planning committee, we weren't trying to scare everybody in town, but we actually had come up, including the schools, because we knew that the schools had to be replaced. That was 6 or 7 years ago, David? I think at town meeting, that's before I was a selectman. I got up at town meeting and up on the screen, I put that 95 million some dollar number for capital needs back then. And we had a whopping $1 million available to do anything.
Yeah.
So it was only gonna take us 95 years, and we'd never catch up no matter what.
I was working for the former town administrator. I forgot the handouts, and you yelled at me.
That's right, I did. That's pissed at me, actually.
He probably saved you.
No. But either way, it's something that's been there. It's not here. It goes back again to the basic philosophy that the town needs to make a decision if it wants to step up or not. And I'm saying it, I'm not trying to aggravate people, but if you're not willing to commit to having the better services and things you need, then it can't happen, because we can't print money.
No.
We're not the federal government. We can't print money. We're not a state which takes the money from the federal government and distributes it and can move it back and forth to work for them. We take whatever comes down the street to us, and that's it.
The
It's another
school,
unfunded liability.
the school project is on a very,
Basically.
very quick track right now.
I believe that they have to do their submission as to what it is they're looking for by April.
Yes.
And have it before the 2018, by the fall town meeting, am I right? Yeah. That's the plan. That's the plan. So,
So if we're going to have any input on that, if there's any discussion as to a different location, a campus setup, 2 schools, any of that
had
stuff,
that discussion 2 months ago.
Yes.
well, then this is going to appear on each agenda going forward then, because I think it's, especially with that in mind.
The feasibility portion of the location's essentially going on now as we speak.
Right.
They've hired them to take
Got
a
a firm
look
to
at
do it.
it. They have to look at certain amounts. When at the last meeting, I got a little ticked off because I was hearing, well, we're looking at the single school options. I said, my understanding was that wasn't an option, but it looks like by the MSBA guidelines, you need to check off every box and look at every single
Yeah, you have to.
one.
Right,
So-
you have to have gone through every possibility so that you can't be criticized for not looking at a possibility.
And the MSBA.
Well, they don't care if you get criticized, but they don't want to be criticized.
Well,
No.
they make the decision at the end of the day, the MSBA.
That's what I
No
mean.
matter what you want, it doesn't matter.
But they want all the available information from you first, so that once the decision is made, they can say, well, this is what the town submitted.
Right.
We've been,
So we don't
just,
wind up with a $250 million Newton North.
That's
Selectman
not-
Scarsiotti, to your point, believe it or not, we've been looking at some software and having people come in. I know some of the surrounding communities have done it, especially through the Maya grant, to come in and do basically an assessment of all our buildings and start putting them into a tracking software. Give us the lifespan of basically the utilities in there and such, our roof, everything from the carpets. And then this is actually one of the things that you start using towards your decision-making, right? The capital planning does a great job tracking it. We have a spreadsheet for that and such, but this is really a really nice tracking software. Software costs money every year. It's easy enough. What I tell people, which I don't think they understand, it's easy enough for us to get, if you will, one-time funding for things. You can get it started. How do you maintain it and keep that going into the future? And these are types of things I'd love to get, because we could put it right on the town website. We've replaced that roof. Yep, let's update it. You know, we've had a major incident. There was a hurricane, a tree fell on there. Well, obviously that's now our new priority and such. And I really think we could help the voters of this town in making decisions. I mean, right now the library's AC system is completely dead. We had it limp along. It's $50,000 to replace a terribly inefficient AC system in there that really doesn't work whatsoever. It's $100,000 to replace it. We're looking at getting quotes for just the dual head units to do it in a couple different spots, because maybe that makes more sense. I mean, if you look at it for an entity that needs money extremely badly, their electricity costs are about $30,000 a year. What could that go towards? So it's, you know, and these are some of the frustrations. Yeah, we need to fix a lot of things. We need to continue to, we've consolidated things from our bus mechanics to even bringing HR for school and town on board. And it's, you know, some of these it seem like the low-hanging fruit, but my goodness, they took work to even get through, so.
Yep.
I don't think anybody here wants to have you feel, certainly I'm not being critical of you at all. I think you've been, you and your team have done a marvelous job of keeping us from sinking. And people do need to understand that personnel costs go up every year. Maybe nothing else does, but personnel costs go up every year. So the world is perfect and the costs are going up, and we have no control over that at all. So all of these dreams that my friend here has, they're short-stopped by the fact that that money is already committed to things that we already do and have employees.
If we're a private business, and yeah, let's do a culling, and then our stock price will rise,
Right.
and then, you know, you
Yeah.
can generate more.
Yeah.
But that's, right, if folks still, the early retirement program's great. Do you know what you have to do to prove? If you do the early retirement program that they had before, you can't fill that position because you have to prove a savings.
Right.
We remove, somebody goes on early retirement, there's nobody to do that job. The job doesn't get done, so what do you do?
Yep.
Less services. Then there's less income to the town at the end of it.
So.
It's a very difficult situation. It really is.
So you're going to be putting it on the
Yeah,
agenda
it's
every
going
week?
to stay,
Okay,
it's
great.
going to stay on here.
I think it's something too, you know, if you're concerned with the school piece of it, that maybe you have some kind of, you know, I know they have their own committee, but maybe you have some kind of joint meeting where.
We'll do a joint meeting, because I
there's
think
some
that might be
thoughts
wise.
back and forth, so at least there's some, you know, because when we originally voted, you know, at town meeting to do the money for the MSBA study, and it's not really a study, so people, when they hear the word study, they think we're throwing them in. It's really an engineering
Isn't it?
piece
Yeah.
of work, because what you do is you come up with 3 or 4 options, and the MSBA makes the choice. I was very clear that I would never vote for anything at town meeting for debt exclusion unless the 2 schools were done at the same time, and somehow they joined pieces together for savings such as 1 cafeteria, 1 gym, et cetera. Because I just didn't think this town didn't have enough funds to do 2 separate buildings in 2 locations. And my thought was always to bring it over here, because therefore the busing would all be here and life would be easier. Again, you know, maybe that's crazy for me to think, but it's the only way that I consider doing it personally.
Well, you know,
May I
I'm
just,
sorry, go ahead.
that there are 3 really cheap people on that committee. 3, they're in this room. And, yeah. And there are 23 people on that committee. So there's a huge number of people on that committee. There's a subcommittee for this and a subcommittee for that, but I think that this is my personal opinion, and the opportunity to make some suggestions about where it should go. They're meeting on the 21st, am I right? Yeah, that's the next time that we meet. And we've already thrown out there, you know, try and consolidate. So, yeah, it might be a great idea to have a meeting, but
It's going to be
They
tough
were
with
already-
23 people. Maybe they could send a delegation or something.
well, the delegate,
For the delegation, okay.
It's the other way around. We don't really have much input
Right.
except through Judy.
well, no, Derek and David.
Dave's here to listen to
Yeah,
it.
but David's, again, it's fine. All I'm saying is that as a board here, you know, we're not there.
No, we don't, I mean, you have me, 1 out of 23. You have Derek, who's 1 out of 23.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 2 out of 23.
But
That
as-
still sucks.
As a board, we're supposed to be providing, you know, guidance and direction. It's part of what we're supposed to do. At the end of the day, we're responsible no matter what. All I'm trying to get at is that, you know, capital planning, they do their work. They give a list to Derek of, you know, what the town needs. Derek has to make decisions what he can afford to do. Capital planning, if they want, can sit there and look at different ways of borrowing finance and make suggestions about how you could possibly do stuff, taking money and, you know, taking a small amount of money and leveraging it to a large amount of money to do things. And I'll give Dave whatever time he wants to speak, but those are things they can do. But at the end of the day, it has to go through the town administrator for that piece. But all I'm getting at is that when we do these things, we don't really provide that guidance at this particular time. It hasn't been there in a while because we're trying to put out fires everywhere else, really. And this is really not a fire. This is the town itself or the infrastructure that every town is collapsing because nobody has a solution, so they kind of push it off to the side and close their eyes because they don't know how to fix it. I'm not ashamed to say I don't have an easy answer how to fix any of this, because every year we go deeper into the hole.
Yeah.
Well, it's also, we have right now probably the best contract we've ever had
Yeah.
for laid in place asphalt, $59 a ton laid in place. And it's realistically what should happen if we thought we had any chance of getting it through is we should do a massive borrowing to do all the main drags in the entire town, because our Chapter 90 funds don't take care of enough of it. And sometimes you'll see people will say, well, you know, the main drag's been done twice, my side streets, it had never been done since, and that actually makes sense from a public safety aspect and usage. But if you were to, right now, you know, for roughly, you'd be talking about $9 million, you could take care of all the large main drags in this town, have it brand new, and not the coal plane. I mean, talking about really solid, taken down, laid in place, and you know, that would make a world of difference, because every year thereafter, we'd use our roughly $750,000 of Chapter 90s funds to do the side streets. I mean, Toby, surprisingly, was not as expensive as you thought. I think it came in under $200,000.
I was surprised to see how good it was.
Yeah, and they did a nice job on it.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a nice street now.
the town itself, if you look at from, say, for the last 5 years anyways, we've gone and done almost everything we can, you know, that we're allowed to do. We compacted, you know, workforces. We've moved things around to make it more efficient.
Combined departments,
You know,
you know, all sorts of
We've
things.
done things with town hall open 4 days a week. People complain, but at the end of the day, we're trying to do all these different things to make things work, you know, to save. So we're sitting there trying everything we can, and at the beginning of every year, the state maybe will level fund you if you're lucky, if maybe you get a little more money. But unfortunately, health insurance and retirement stuff, there's nothing that helps us, you know, to get ahead, because we're always behind the 8 ball. And no matter how much we sit and squeeze the pennies, you know, to get something out, you know, you think you're all set, and then something comes out of nowhere and kills you. So, I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. And, you know, I give Mr. Sullivan a lot of credit, because he's done a lot of things that the public doesn't see. They don't understand, because they think, well, he's just being, you know, too tight with a dollar. Well, if he wasn't tight with a dollar, we'd have a problem paying our bills. You know, we can borrow money, but if you can't pay it back, it doesn't work.
Right.
And that's what people don't realize, is that you can't run it like you run your own personal life with credit cards, and you're out, you know, 3 years in debt or whatever, you know, or you basically, you know, get to a point where you can't pay your card off, it gets wiped out, and you go do it again. Towns can't do that. We all go to jail when we do that.
Patrick?
I just wanted to, this goes back a ways, I just wanted to jump in on what Alan said about the campus situation. I think that's the only way it's gonna work. I can't see it being any other way. I support him in that 100%. I also think that part of the offset for that whole project could be the fact that the Deacon's property, in my opinion, is worth a considerable amount of money. And
It's got a new
that's...
roof and a new boiler.
Well, it isn't, I think the building would get torn down, I think it would become something else, but I think it's a very valuable piece of property, and, you know, which is a good offset. I mean, you know, that can help the town a great deal.
But you just said that it could only go back into real estate.
If you sell that, he's talking about development. If you saw tonight what development brings back into revenue.
Okay, okay.
To the
Yes,
community.
exactly.
Then you need to be more specific, because what people at home are hearing is something slightly different. Oh, let's sell it and we're gonna have a whole bunch of money. No.
No.
It's a mixed-use development.
Yeah.
That's a nice one-time
Good.
source to
So
put into our
development,
right,
yes.
real estate.
But
mean-
then you have an ongoing.
Well, but it solves the problems that the ongoing problems that we're discussing.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? It feeds back into that. So, and now you're at, you know, if you're at 95 million, you're less money, you know what I mean? Everything feeds back into it. I mean, there's a lot of buildings around here that we should probably think about moving on and become something else, especially now that the economy's starting to heat up. Somebody's gonna want them, and somebody's gonna wanna do something, we're gonna get our maximum amount of dollars for them, and that feeds back in, and again, that can feed back into some of this stuff that we want to do. And we don't necessarily have to pick off, like he says, the biggest apple, but we can pick off some of the littler, lower hanging fruit and get some of the things accomplished, you know?
Why don't you come up so you can use the mic so people can hear you at home?
Thank you. This is Dave Hurd, and one of the big items that's facing the town right now, which you've all addressed, is the new school. There is a committee of 23 members right now. They've hired a project manager. They've hired an architect engineer to start work on this, and I think it's time for them to come and make a presentation before the Board of Selectmen. So if you would accept that, I will make a recommendation to the committee that they appear before you, give you an update as to what's going on and what their progress is and what their plans are.
Yeah, they had given us a couple of updates. It's time maybe for another one.
Yeah.
Sure, if they're ready to.
I mean, they really are
it's a
on a
good-
fast track.
Yeah,
Really
it's
fast
tight
track.
time.
Okay.
I think part of it they did have in their outreach responsibilities, so I don't think that'd be a problem, especially if we can try and schedule. Their meetings are usually about 5 o'clock or so, 5:30 or so.
5.
Right.
Yeah,
5:30. And if if we have the OPM and the other folks in town, they can stay for a little while longer. Maybe we can either move our meetings up a little bit or have them first on the agenda, because at the end, we are spending the money when we have them here, but it'd be a great opportunity to get the information out. They are public meetings.
Yeah.
But, it's, this way,
That's pretty funny. That's pretty
It
funny.
doesn't need to be the entire committee, but I
No.
think that
And I'm sure everybody in town is sitting there.
they'll come before you and give you an update as to what's going on, and also, it is part of the outreach. It's part of informing the population of this town what the plans are, what people are thinking, and what the options are that they're looking at. I think it'd be important as part of the outreach program.
How soon do you think we could get them in here?
I'll talk to them tomorrow, and we'll see if we can
Yeah,
arrange
let me
it
know.
within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah,
Well,
thanks.
the chair is Michael McMillan, Mr. McMillan. And the consultants, I know the next meeting is the 21st. Do you want them in before the 21st so that you get your shot in and saying, why don't you use this location as, you know, I mean, the three cheap people were on the same page the last time we met.
Right.
I'm happy to have him come in next week if
Let's see if
if
we can
that
do
works.
that. I'll talk with Michael
Because
tomorrow.
I was actually thinking of not meeting on the 21st But to the extent that these people would be meeting on the 21st, if anybody's interested in our input, they could at least have that for your meeting on the 21st.
Fine.
So,
I'll
Yeah,
get back
I think
and
that's a good idea.
I'll let you know of Michael's availability and also the architect and the project manager.
okay, great.
Good, thank you.
Appreciate it, thanks.
Okay.
All righty. It was quite the discussion.
It was good.
Here we go, choo-choo whistles.
Yeah, this is mine.
Train whistle
This is
mitigation.
mine. I mean,
It's-
you know,
Is there something on the agenda that I didn't see? I mean, it's here, but I don't see any backup.
There's no backup.
Okay,
there's no
discussion.
backup because there's really nothing. It's a discussion.
okay.
Fortunately for us, town council has done this in the past. In Cohasset was one of your towns, right? I think you said?
Go ahead.
With your permission, Mr. Chairman, I've done it in Franklin, I think Bellingham, Ipswich maybe,
Ipswich, yeah.
a
Okay.
bunch of places.
So he's done it in a bunch of places. So the process obviously is no stranger to him. I think it's something we should allow him to go forward and set up. I think you have to have a meeting and, you know, it's like a public hearing and the whole 9 yards process. You know, see what we can do for this. I mean, it's just, I'm sorry, but it's rather disheartening, and it doesn't bother me because the train doesn't go by my house. But there are trains that are going through the neighborhoods that are screeching those whistles and waking people up and causing, I mean, it's annoying. It's quite annoying. It's like living next to you know, an airport. Now, yeah, the trains were there before, but this whole business, they never, you know, as long as there was a gate, they used to not blow the whistles. It became a thing where all of a sudden now, even when there's a gate, they blow the whistles. This has changed over the years, the process. And it's just not a good thing. It's not good for people, it's not good for the community, and it's not necessary.
So the that you're talking about is having us adopt a policy or write a letter and say, please don't blow your whistle when you go
No, it
through
doesn't
town?
work that way. There's actually a process for this, believe it or not. He can tell you, town council can tell you the process.
Well, okay, but that's what we're talking about. So, I frankly remember a lot of people, I mean, I've heard trains from every house I've ever lived in, and I hear a train several times a day, even though I live 5 miles away from a train track, because the sound travels. I think it's kind of nice. I probably wouldn't think it was nice if it went back through my backyard or something.
Exactly.
But, I mean, I don't really even know what we're talking about, so how can we talk about, I mean, we were told there are 8 crossings. I don't know how many crossings there are. How many people have been hit on those crossings? How many people, you know? So what are we talking about before we even talk about it?
Crossings, you got bridges, et cetera.
Well, they don't blow for bridges, but they do blow for crossings.
Yes, they do.
You know, one of the things that's kind of funny, somebody saw this on our agenda and got a hold of me yesterday, a business owner, and they said, look, I'm not saying get rid of all the train whistles, but there's one driver, and apparently he really lays on. Instead of beep, 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 it's beep, beep. It just goes on, and she says it's like a full minute to blow the whistle as they're approaching the Narrows. And, you know, this person's on the phone trying to have a business conversation. Hold on, here comes the train. You know, a minute later, they can resume the conversation. And I told this person, I said, well, that sounds a little excessive, so if you call me with a date and time of the annoying whistle, perhaps we can get a hold of Mass Coastal and get this engineer to be a little less zealous on laying on the horn. But, you know, I do have concerns about people on tracks, and I do have concerns that when a crossing fails and the gates don't come down, and the engineer doesn't know that as he's coming there, the whistle makes a difference.
If we request this, are we responsible legally
Well, but let me make it clear, there are other towns that have done this.
Yeah, no, it's happening.
Cohasset is one, there's a bunch that have done it. But also, let me tell you, there's two, Doug Hale, everybody knows Doug Hale, he sat on a couple of our boards, he ran for town moderator once upon a time. The train goes right next to his house. And Mike Messina and a few others over there on Hathaway, where it's all residential for the whole distance right there. And those people, it's like putting the train whistle in their bedrooms or in their room. That's how loud it is. And if anything, that's a bad one, okay? Because it's residential all the way, the whole length of it is all residential and all right next to their houses. It's different, yeah, a train whistle sounds great when it's off in the distance. Everybody says, oh, a train whistle, nice. You know, but when you're sitting in your living room and the train whistle sounds like it's in your living room, not so much. And unnecessary, and you're right. There are guys, they think it's cool. You know, they'll hold the whistle. They get a young guy, who knows? So you blow the whistle and he holds that thing for the whole length of the thing. You know, I'm sorry, it sounds ridiculous that we have to talk about train whistles. You know, that they should be disturbing the peace, but they are. It's as simple as that.
Could we hear from
Yes.
himself?
What's it take to mitigate a train whistle?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Oh, it's falling apart. Train whistles can be a very touchy subject. In addition to having done some of these petitions, I was on the Citizens Advisory Committee for the restoration of the Old Colony Railroad, and I was served on that committee for, I want to say,
years.
For years. I want to say it was 5 or 6 years.
Did you blow the whistle?
No, I never did. But one of the most sensitive things that we had to deal with was the subject of train whistles. And from having done the DPU petitions that I'll tell you about in a second, and then from having served on that committee and negotiated with the T, there's a definite process that you can follow that I think would help you. Let me just give you a citation for the legal process, and then I'll suggest a way to go about it. The particular statute that is of interest to you is Chapter 160, Section 139. And if I may, Mr. Chairman, it's very short, I'll just read it out. The department, and that's the Department of Public Utilities, upon petition and after notice to the Railroad Corporation and a public hearing, may, for good cause shown, recommend to such railroad corporation such changes as it considers proper in the manner of making up and shifting freight trains or freight cars and of sounding of whistles on locomotives. And it may by written order forbid or regulate the sounding of whistles on the locomotives of such corporation at any specified grade crossings of the tracks of such corporation with any public way. The corporation which is subject to such order shall, until the order has been modified or annulled by the department, conform in all respects to the terms thereof. So, we have to have a petition. DPU will hold a public hearing. DPU has jurisdiction over train whistles that are blown at the intersections of a train track and a public way. I don't know if Choo Choo Charlie here is just blowing his whistle while he rides through a cranberry bog. We couldn't get DPU to stop that, but anywhere that a whistle is being blown as the train approaches a public way and crosses that public way at a grade crossing, DPU has jurisdiction to hold the hearing and issue an order. So, okay, that's the law. So how do you go about doing all this? What I would suggest is that because we don't know the number of grade crossings that we're dealing with, that you hold an informational meeting and ask people who have grievances to come forward and say, hey, I've got a problem, here's what it is.
Good idea.
So you have a list of problem intersections, because that's what DPU is going to want to know about. And then once you have a list of problem intersections, you then ask the people who have the problems with the noise that's being made to give us some evidence. Tell us about what the problems are, why it's too long, when it's a problem. And then at that point, once you have a list of grievances and specific intersections and time, dates, and places, then invite the T, or whoever is the offending whistleblower, in for a friendly discussion about what their willingness to voluntarily reduce the amount of offensive noise. And then they may be willing to cut back on their own. If they're not, we then file a petition with the DPU and ask for the hearing and ask them to issue an order. I can tell you from the experience of having done these that they are willing to order that whistleblowing be stopped at certain locations. They won't, typically they won't give you all of them. If there's evidence that particular intersections are more dangerous than other ones, you know, for example, I'm thinking about a train going through down by the Narrows. That's tough. You know, that's one you might not get. Right. But on a sleepier intersection, that's the type of one where the DPU might say, well, you know, there's not a lot of traffic going through there. So yeah, okay, fine, no whistle. So there's, you want to develop evidence, you want to have some idea of traffic counts, so you got to start by getting a list of the problem intersections, and that's it.
I count 7 in town. County Road, Hathaway, Elm, Narrows, Indian Neck, Depot Street, Main Ave, and I'm not coming up with the 8th.
Station Street, Ideka School.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Station Street, so there are 8, okay.
How many bridges are there?
5 bridges.
We don't blow at the bridges, though.
No, they don't.
Just grade crossings. At least I haven't heard them blow at the
I
bridges.
haven't heard them blow at the bridges.
I've never seen them blow at a bridge.
Yeah. Maybe Choo Choo Charlie, who leans on the horn, could be told in the meantime to knock it off, but, well, what's your pleasure as far as a workshop
I think we should
meeting?
do that. I think we should invite people
See if people complain.
and see if they come in to complain and what they, and get the idea, because they're the guys who should go to that hearing too. And, you know, make their case.
Yeah.
You know? Ultimately, I mean, we give them the opportunity to do it.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you know, if we go to the hearing point, it's a hearing. I need witnesses.
Right.
So
Need those people to come.
that's right. I hate to sound, I don't know, brusque or I'm just trying to be to the point, which is if we go through the process and get a hearing, if folks want this to work, they have to be willing to travel into Boston and testify.
Exactly.
Yep, could have some skin in the game.
You need
That's
to
right.
have
If
some
it's bothering
skin in
you
the
that
game.
much,
I
you can
agree.
spend a day to
And
go
if they don't want to
complain
have
about it.
skin in the game, then they're going to have to listen to the whistles,
Yep.
you know?
Patrick had asked me originally to look into this for him at the state level in Boston, and I got a hold of basically the general manager for Mass Rail. And what Rich has explained is exactly what he said. You've got to get the people to come in and register their complaints. Got to go through the whole process, and this is the way it's done. He said if you just ask them to reduce the sound, it's not going to happen.
I think we should do that. I think we should schedule a night that we ask these people to come in, get it publicized with the people out here. A few of them I can call, because I know who some of the people are, because they've called me to complain. You know, I can always pick up the phone and call them and tell them, hey, you gotta show up whatever night, and let them to come in, bring what they've gotta bring, and and then I guarantee you, they know when the thing blows and when it doesn't. I'm sure they have it down to a science.
Can I just ask a question, that may be sort of commonsensical? We're really talking about the trash train, which,
It's mostly the trash train, except in the summertime,
except in the summertime.
Except in the summertime.
So for a start, does somebody know who runs the coastal trash train? Yeah, of course we do.
It's not Mass Coastal anymore. Mass Coastal was sold to, wasn't Union Pacific, what's the name of they were out of Iowa Pacific. It's a different, it's a big,
Oh, it's a different,
it's a
okay.
huge conglomerate that owns it now.
All right, okay,
But
well,
they still have to function through Mass DOT.
right, but I'm saying, call
Mass
the
Rail
guy,
owns the
call the guy
lines.
who lives down the street and ask him to knock it off first, before we go through all of this. I'm not trying to be funny about it, but, if the guy lives
If
down
it's
the
the-
street, then call him up.
If it's the trash train, you could, it's right down in Wareham here where they have an office.
Right.
No, the people that are complaining live down the street. I think you're talking about the guy blowing the whistle. God only knows where he lives.
Yeah.
They have an office in Wareham.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, it's always,
Anyway.
I'm with Selectman Whiteside on that because, one of the first questions you always get is, did you try to work it out on your own?
Yeah.
And if you say no, well, guess what? You just got set back 6 months. So,
Well, why don't we see what we get for complaints and then deal with it that way, and then we can go forward from there.
Okay, I mean, I probably wouldn't schedule even a workshop meeting until December anyway, so.
Whatever, but at least we can get it.
But we can encourage people to get a hold of us and
Take it off the wall.
register their complaints.
Right.
The media could put that out. Since they see them busy writing and typing away.
Sometimes it's the little things.
Yeah. Let's see,
Next one
yeah,
is the,
we don't have to do this, they struck the provisions, just so the public knows what's going on. The legislature is considering a healthcare cost containment bill, and one of the provisions they had in up until quite recently was something where they could set the rate that the towns could charge for ambulance service. And after they basically found themselves under a hailstorm of criticism from
they did.
every single town in city in the state that ran an ambulance service, they wisely decided to yank that provision, so now we don't have to send a letter.
I wonder why, yeah.
just one point of that. I want to go and review and make sure what's not there. The other piece of that also happened to be as far as the, on the piece of the ambulance, I think it had to do, there was another piece that affects us. I'm drawing a blank now, I apologize. Give me a second, senior moment here.
Derek was watching it, because I had conversations with him over the weekend about it.
Yeah, it didn't have to do with the rate, but it had to do with, oh yeah, I'm sorry. There was a piece in there which really disturbed me, because what they were planning on was to, basically for the ambulance fee, the bill, they would pay the actual patient. And the patient, in theory, would then pay the ambulance service. Well, maybe I'm thinking out of the box a little too much, but if I was someone who realized that I'm getting a check from from an insurance company or whatever, and then I have to pay somebody, well, I'm gonna be calling the ambulance every other week because I got a great income source coming to me. And we don't have the ability to go chase people all over the place to get paid. So I think that provision might still be in there. We need to, if that's there, then we still need to lobby, because that was a killer.
Okay, well, you can follow that and let us know.
Yeah, I'll let you know. That was the other part that I don't think it eliminated.
Okay, we have a request from the Garden Club to place signs on town property.
Let's see, Diane Murphy asked for, request place, Garden Club would like to request permission to place a banner for our Cranberry Christmas Fair on the Toby Homestead, which is where we allow that. The week before Thanksgiving, dimensions of our banner are 8 feet wide by 18 inches high.
That your motion?
Yep.
Second.
You're talking about the bump out in front of the Toby homestead.
That's correct.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah.
There's 2 posts that have been put in there.
Yeah, they were left by somebody else and never taken out.
Yeah, we
Gateman.
need to yank them out, then I'll have municipal maintenance yank those, because they just look awful.
The gateman
Yeah.
put them in there.
Gateman, yeah.
Oh,
For the-
can the gateman take them out, please?
Too late now,
I
they're
have no
gone.
idea. They're out of town.
Doesn't work for the gate.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't go there.
Motion in a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who made the motion?
Me.
Motion by Selectman Slavin, seconded by Selectman Tropiano. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Okay, anybody have any 40-hour business? Selectman Tropiano?
No.
Selectman Scasiotti? Selectman Whiteside?
Yeah, I'm tired of losing my power because people plow down telephone poles.
You could have done that during announcements. Let's see, Selectman Slavin?
Quick thing, I spoke to a town administrator earlier today. We had got a request for the Lopes Playground area and the Heinz area about, excessive speed on the roads. Serpent has a small little budget available, in a small time frame before the weather gets too cold to do a traffic and speed study for us at no cost. So I would ask that if the board would be willing, even though this is last minute, okay us to go ahead and ask for that.
I would absolutely agree with that. People drive down that road about 100 miles an hour.
I know with this,
We need to send a letter out requesting it, that's the only thing.
with the Swiss Beach one, I know that we had a lot of communications in advance about people complaining about that because they were looking for, in that instance, they were looking for lights. This sounds a little simpler.
Much simpler.
Yeah, I mean, it's not our money, I mean.
What is it, people just come out of Onset Village, just bopping down the hill too fast at that intersection?
Yeah, it can't hurt.
It is easy to do.
Do
You
it
can't
about
hurt
60
the-
miles
You don't hit
an hour.
you don't hit 40 until you go past the old furniture store building there or whatever it
No,
is.
mean, it can't
They're
hurt.
at 60 when they go there.
Might find something out that we don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my motion would be to ask our chairman just to write a letter to
Second.
Paul Mission at Serpent requesting this particular thing.
Second.
Okay, motion to authorize a letter by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. I'll get a letter out probably early next week.
Thank you.
Maybe tomorrow if you're lucky.
I don't get lucky very often anymore.
Well, that's a personal problem. Thank God it's not on the agenda. Town Administrator's Report.
That's just the updated revenue and expenditures through August 31st. Actually, this is just the expenditures. So I'll hand that out to you, and we can go through it in the next meeting if there's any questions. Probably the only one you'd see as you'll see some of the expenses that are outliers. Some of the things we pay are upfront, such as retirement. Certain dues are paid at the beginning of the fiscal year and such. Human resources looks to be trending high, but that's because we haven't hit the salary off to the grant in the school department as well. So everything's pretty much in line. Two areas we know where we will have to make a transfer, well, all told at the end, is one is the town clerk's office, because we have an assistant town clerk that's required. Well, it should be required through the state and such, so that is Miss Rhodes is now assistant town clerk. That is a steel worker position, so we'll have to transfer some monies out at the end of the year to cover that.
Is that it?
This is the, it's probably earlier than you're used to. We just took a look at the initial revenues and such for looking for FY19. We now have pretty much what we'll see for FY18 for new growth and such, which will help us get our numbers. So just a quick explanation. When you look at it, here's what we're projecting for new tax growth, new taxes for FY19, about 1.3 million, of which about 9.7 is the 2.5 authorized. Then you're looking at new growth of about $350,000. Chapter 70, probably, we're being conservative at a 2% increase. State aid for the local government, right around the same, about 1.64, going with some of the trends we've seen. We're not going to see a big bump in our local receipts. We go with 90% of the prior full fiscal year. And if you look, in FY17, we brought in about $7 million. So you'd only be going about $6.3 million. The reason you don't go all the way, which is what I've been asked before, in fact, we're sort of condemned for not doing that. If you do not collect the receipts, you will be in trouble. Yeah. So you cannot, just because you got it the year before does not mean you'll get the exact same ones.
It's happened.
Yeah.
We've done that.
They've done that.
And the penalty is exponential.
You basically get double hit, if you will, for that. So this is a nice, safe way of doing it. That way, if one thing trends in the wrong way, you're still covered.
Gotta stay safe.
You'll see the reduction in the available funds of $90,000. This fiscal year, we used $90,000 as a one-time offset free cash to fund the new assessment from the Carver, Marion, Wareham Refuse District. We're not going to do that going forward. If that's an every year budget item, or those costs are going forward, we can't use free cash for that. We have to be accountable and spend that out of our revenues. So when you come to it, we're looking about 1,636,000 new revenues, or about 2.63% higher than the previous year. So somebody might be looking at it and saying, wow, that's great. Now let's go to the next part. If you look at the bottom of the page, I've held the town and the school both level, have not changed that. That's only for the purposes of trying to figure out what we have available. So our fixed costs, which is our debt, should remain roughly the same. It'll actually go down on the chart. However, we know we're going to have to bond out for what we just put through for the Minot Forest and Deacon's feasibility study. So we'll have some, so let's keep that pretty level. The veterans assessments, we're doing well. You'll see the Carver Marion Wareham Refuse District. So those are all pretty much staying the same. Now we get to the benefits section. The Plymouth County retirement contributions going up about $250,000. We received that assessment. There's nothing we can do about it. In fact, this would be about $150,000 higher, except we pay at the beginning of the year to make sure that we get a discounted rate for paying it. The LIUNA is another smaller, much smaller pension benefit. That should remain the same. Our workers' compensation, it's skyrocketed over the last few years, but we should be leveling out. Same thing with our general liability. Unemployment, we keep it at the same level. If we run into a rough time, you'll actually have to crank that up, because if you're laying people off, you're going to have higher unemployment. You might make up some difference in the medical insurance. Medical insurance, we're looking at, the Mayflower Group is trending very well right now. We're looking at a little bit over $1 million surplus in the funding rates. However, an 8% increase is probably what people are seeing nationally. It's a nice conservative estimate. Even if you went, so that would be about a little over $600,000 increase. Even if you cut that in half, that's still a $300,000 increase. That's just going to keep on going up. There's life insurance, one of them that's pretty much the same. We might have a little reduction in there. FICA, which is one of the taxes that we pay, should be about the same. So when you look at it, our the benefits costs are going up almost $940,000. State and county assessments, I used... Before, I was using a compounding annual growth rate on that. I can't use it for the school choice sending and the charter school sending, because the compounding annual growth rate is roughly 40%, meaning that if I did that, we'd have about a $1.6 million increase. So that's not a sound practice. But looking at what we've seen over the last few years, roughly $11.87 to $500,000 increase is probably a safe bet, unless the student numbers we're not losing any more. I had hoped we'd hit a saturation point, because you would think so, but it doesn't look like it. So Upper Cape Cod Tech, we've been lucky. If you remember in FY13, some of the others, we had a few massive jumps that were $400,000 to $500,000. We'll try and get the student enrollment reports, which will help us. They usually go up overall about 2%, but depending on how many kids go, if we suddenly are the ones where a lot of kids have graduated from other towns and we're the largest influx, that can be a massive hit. But we've kept it at about 150,000, which is the trend we've seen over the last few years. So now you look at that. So we have about 1.63 million in new revenue. Just our fixed costs before you get to the school or the town budget, you're looking at about 1.58 million. So that means we have roughly $56,000 to split between the town and the schools.
And something will devour that well in advance of April.
So,
Shouldn't be a problem.
No, that's easy.
So when somebody tells you
50,000, you can just do 50,000. You can just do that. It doesn't matter. It's, that's, where's the reality in that? You look at it, so I trended over the last few years. When you go back to FY13, the town's budgets, the compounding annual growth rate is 0.23%, and the schools is 0.93%. Everybody says you get 2.5%.
Not really.
Can you repeat those percentages, please?
0.23%.
And?
Point, 93.
Wonderful number.
So together, we represent just over 1%. So I guess that's if my reaction was a little severe earlier when we spoke about, new things. It's sort of, this is what I've been looking at over the last week or so, and it's, and I'll tell you, the request for services and new things does not stop, so.
No.
Never will.
So I want to give you this update. I know that I had forwarded this to the school department so that they could have a fair understanding of what's going on as well. And I believe they will bring it up at their next school committee meeting. So.
Okay, great.
Okay, then. Anything else to report, or is that enough doom and gloom for one night?
I'd love to give you rainbows and unicorns, but...
No rainbows today.
Yeah, that's not happening. All right, consent agenda. Authorization to sign bills and documents. Didn't you have a couple of contracts?
Actually, what I'm going to do is when we get the omnibus documents in, since these are just the MOAs, I can sign them. I was looking at them. They didn't put all the lines in. I said, well, I can just sign them, and when they do the whole omnibus, that should be a Board of Selectmen signature.
Okay.
You missed the,
What, liaison initiative reports? Let me just think I missed it.
yeah, I know you try to avoid it.
Yeah.
All right, liaison initiative reports. Selectman Tropiano.
Okay, so, a couple things. First off, this is a phone. That's what do you call it? We get our stuff electronically now. I just want everybody to know this at home. We get it electronically. So when we're up here and we're playing with and today I'm not using my iPad, I'm using my phone for my agenda and all of my stuff so I can see what's going on. Well, I had information on my phone for town meeting. And lo and behold, somebody comes up to me and says, geez, somebody said you were playing with your phone at town meeting. Well, that's ridiculous. Okay, I don't know about you, but we're pretty invested in town meeting when we go there. We're all paying very careful attention. We're trying to get things done, and playing with our phone is not part of it. So whoever's saying those kinds of things, just remember, everything's electronic now, including our paperwork, which now comes on these various devices. So we're not using them for play. So just so everybody knows, I just had to get that out of the way. Next, I went to the sewer commissioners meeting, sewer commission's meeting not too long ago. I guess it was last week. We had talked about a business manager plan being one of the things that we had talked about, and apparently they voted unanimously to pursue it. So they are going to be talking to Derek about pursuing a business manager, and I don't know if maybe they already have. Maybe you've already got it already, but they voted unanimously to pursue it. So you'll be hearing some conversation. And I know we were all thinking that that's, probably overdue. So there'll be some conversation. The other thing is, we have that thing coming up with Bourne. And, Bourne had a lot of questions and stuff, and it seems like nobody wants to ever get these things answered. But apparently now they're putting together the paperwork for backup for all this stuff. Guy is going through it all. They literally voted to get him to do it for whatever reason. And I guess they're going to ask him to copy me with all the information as well. So I'll have the information for all of us as well. I'm not so sure it's anything that I want to get out directly to the public, because, of course, we'll be dealing with that issue, and it's probably something that shouldn't be in the public eye, but I think all of us should have it at any rate. So whatever information I get, I'll make sure the chairman gets copies to you guys as well.
Yep, hey, somebody could get sued.
Yeah, exactly, for whatever purpose, so. But that's what I have for today.
Okay, Selectman Scasiotti. Selectman Whiteside.
I talked about the school meeting that I went to.
Yep.
Yeah, so I don't have anything else, sir.
Selectman Slavin.
On Wednesday last week, myself, Mr. Sullivan, Gary Buckminster, and several people from the firm were talking about the onset pier and the redo of the pier and projected expenses, et cetera, and where we can get grants and funding. I believe the middle ground number was like $3 million or something to that effect. Yeah, 3 to 4 million. No small problem. We got 56,000 put away for it, I guess. That's about all.
Is it historic?
No. It floats, though. So
Oh, it's older than 75 years, so.
that's another capital item that's coming before us, because it is unfortunately starting to fall apart. I had a meeting today on, I thought it was going to be a bike path meeting for South Coast Alliance, and it was actually a company called V-Bikes. They're a company that has these specialized bikes that work off a GPS locking system, which they bring bicycles into different towns or whatever. They lay them out in certain areas where the town wants them. There's no cost to the town. The town is not required to repair or anything else. Basically, they obviously earn money because it costs like $1 for an hour to rent a bicycle, and or $15 for unlimited 1 hour use every day of the week if you want. It was an interesting concept. There's different things out there. I'm going to give this to Mr. Sullivan. It might be worthwhile for him to look at it, maybe for us to talk about it down the line. Because you basically, you could pick out like an onset village. You could possibly have some bikes there for people coming off boats and stuff. They could bicycle around, do different things, bring it back, they're done. The bikes come with baskets inside for going, getting groceries and stuff like that, or just going to a restaurant. The bikes are really made well. They're about 50 pounds, so they're not inexpensive bikes. I think they run $800 to $1,300, depending on the model.
Our library lends fishing poles. So.
Yep. So, and actually, there are libraries. I think Mattapoisett, one of the library, Marion actually does lend. I think they do some kind of bicycles. Actually, they actually lend them out right now.
They actually have this program in Washington and many cities in Virginia, and it's a private corporation, and people use them all of the time.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But those are cities.
It works in the city very well.
Works in the city.
But again, if you're in a resort area,
The thing is that,
work.
the thing is that we would be taking it away from our bike shop who
Yeah.
rents. They'd be allowing them to compete with our own bike shop that lives and works here. The guy right down the street, he rents bicycles. There's guys all along Buzzards Bay that rent bicycles.
Right, bicycles.
It kind of competes with those guys, and I'm not so sure that we want somebody that doesn't have a storefront or anything, that pays nothing, to come in, drop some bicycles on the street with some locks, and you know what I mean? That would be my opinion. I'd like to see my storefronts, survive and do well.
I think it's something we should look at anyways.
Yeah, you can look at it.
Done?
Okay, so anything else?
No, that's easy today.
Okay.
Well, you know what? He got older. That's why
Yes.
he's not so
That's it?
loquacious.
That's right.
Come on.
It was his birthday.
Alan,
His birthday.
I'm
the other
Sunday, wasn't
disappointed.
it?
Sunday.
Yeah. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Disappointed.
I wanted to sing to him, and he wouldn't let me.
You can do it.
It's almost as bad as Sandy singing to me.
I get to decide who sings and who doesn't. You can go right ahead.
You want to go to the,
I'm doing it now.
Go ahead.
no, it's
No.
too late.
Too late.
Birthday's over. Next,
Oh, it's on the consent agenda.
no, it's not.
Approval of meeting minutes. We've got a bunch.
There's a whole
Let's
bunch.
start off with the execs first. Okay, November 8th. A motion to accept the Selectmen's executive session minutes and hold.
Okay, motion to accept and hold the minutes, executive session minutes of November 8th, 2016 by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Tropiano. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, 500.
Motion to accept executive session minutes of December 13th, 2016. Mrs. Whiteside was
I abstain.
absent. Okay?
Do you want to hold them?
Second.
Yes,
did
have
you
to hold
second,
them
Tony?
also.
Tony, second.
Okay, motion to accept and hold the minutes of December 13th, 2016 for the executive session by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Tropiano. All in favor,
Oh,
say
by
aye.
Mr. Scasiotti.
Oh, seconded by
Scasiotti
Mr. Scasiotti.
And I'm abstain.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Me.
401 with Selectman Whiteside abstaining.
Okay, motion to accept executive session minutes of October 17th and hold, and Mrs.
Whiteside.
Whiteside was absent again.
Second.
Okay, that's October 17th of this year. Motion by Clerk Slavin to accept and hold, seconded by Selectman Scasiotti. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain.
Abstain.
401, Selectman Whiteside again abstaining. Okay, now we can get to the regular session minutes.
Okay, motion to accept the minutes of May 24th, 2016.
Second.
I have to abstain as I was absent.
Second.
Okay, motion to abstain by Clerk Slavin, seconded by
motion.
Oh,
Selectman...
wait a minute. So moved. I make the motion. You
Yeah.
can't make the motion. I'll make the
Second.
motion, and she'll second.
Okay, yeah, if you weren't there, okay. Motion by Selectman Tropiano, seconded by Selectman Scasiotti for the May 24th, 2016 minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain. There's too many goddamn meetings. Let's see.
It was my birthday, what do you want?
What, do you have 3 a year? That's how you get so old.
I got 4. Okay, make a motion to accept the minutes of July 12th, 2016.
Second.
Okay, was everybody here for this one?
Yes.
Okay, motion by Clerk Slavin, whoever seconded.
I did.
Selectman Whiteside, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500.
Make a motion to accept the minutes of July 26th,
Second.
2016. Selectman Tropiano was absent.
Okay, motion to accept the minutes of July 26, 2016 by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain.
Stay.
Okay, 401, Selectman Tropiano abstaining. Next up, January 31st,
Accept the minutes
2017.
of January
Second.
31st, 2017. Everybody was here.
Second.
Okay, motion to accept minutes January 31st, 2017 by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500.
Okay, motion to accept the minutes of June 6th, 2017.
Second.
Selectman Titlebaum was absent, and Selectman Slavin via remote access.
You can still make the
Then you
motion.
can't, you can't make the motion.
Nope, someone
I'll
else
make
will
the
take
motion to...
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Who was the clerk that day?
You were.
I'll make the motion to accept the minutes of June 6, 2017.
Second.
Okay, motion by
Whiteside.
Selectman Whiteside, seconded by Selectman Tropiano. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Abstained.
Abstain, me and Alan, so 302 on that one.
The minutes
No.
of June 27th, 2017. Everybody was here.
Second.
Okay, motion to accept minutes June 27th, 2017 by Clerk Slavin, seconded by
Whiteside.
Selectman Whiteside. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, 500.
Motion to accept the minutes of August 14th,
Second.
2017. Everybody was here.
Second.
Okay, motion to accept August 14th, 2017 by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, 500.
Motion to accept the minutes of September 26th, 2017.
Second.
Everybody was here.
Okay, motion to accept minutes of September 26, 2017 by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500.
Motion to accept the minutes of October 17th, 2017. Mrs. Whiteside was absent.
Okay, motion to accept the minutes of October 17th by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Scasiotti. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, abstain,
Abstain.
401. That is, nope,
Motion
one
to
more.
accept the minutes
Second.
of October 23rd, 2017.
Second.
Okay, motion to accept minutes October 23rd, 2017 by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, that gets a lot done. Thank you to Janet in our office for cranking all these out.
Yep, you gotta sign these.
Yeah, I will. Okay,
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
motion to adjourn by Clerk Slavin, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, abstained, 500. Good night, everybody. Thank you for hanging in there for our longest meeting in a while.
Yep. It's a good meeting. Good information from Makepeace.
We had a lot of stuff to go through.